The shuttle landed softly on the crystal platform outside the royal palace of Valoria. Daniel Carter looked through the window at the magnificent building that rose into the purple sky. Towers made of something like glass caught the light of 3 distant suns and scattered rainbows across the landing area. "Remember," Ambassador Lisa Morgan said from the seat beside him, "we are guests here. The Valorians are proud people. They have been part of the Galactic Assembly for 10,000 years. To them, we are children who just learned to walk." Daniel nodded. He had spent 8 years studying alien cultures before this assignment. He knew the Valorians believed themselves to be the most advanced species in the galaxy. They were tall, elegant beings with silver skin and eyes that shifted colors with their emotions. Their technology was beyond anything Earth had created. Their art and music were considered treasures by every species that had encountered them, and they thought humans were primitive. "I understand," Daniel said quietly. "I will be respectful." Lisa smiled at him. "That's why I requested you for this mission. You have patience, Daniel. More patience than anyone I know." The shuttle doors opened, and the human delegation stepped out onto Valorian soil. There were 6 of them in total. Lisa led the group, with Daniel at her right side. Behind them walked 4 security officers in formal dress uniforms. A Valorian official waited for them at the bottom of the crystal stairs. He was tall, nearly 7 feet, with robes that seemed to flow like water around his thin body. His eyes shifted from blue to green as he studied the humans. "I am High Minister Torvik," he said, his voice smooth and musical. "King Vorath welcomes you to our world. Please follow me." They walked through corridors that seemed to sing with each step. The walls were alive with patterns of light that moved and danced. Daniel had seen many wonders in his years of diplomatic service, but nothing compared to this. The Valorians had turned their entire palace into a work of art. The grand hall, where the reception was being held, could fit 1,000 people. Hundreds of Valorian nobles stood in small groups, their colorful robes creating a sea of moving patterns. They all turned to watch as the humans entered. Daniel felt their eyes on him. Some looked curious. Most looked unimpressed. A few looked at the humans the way someone might look at insects that had crawled into their home. "The king will address you shortly," Torvik said. "Please enjoy the refreshments." Lisa nodded and led her team to a quiet corner of the hall. Servants brought them drinks in glasses that seemed to be made of solid light. Daniel took one and pretended to sip it while watching the crowd. That was when he saw her. She was young, probably no more than 19 by human standards. Her silver skin was flawless, and her eyes kept shifting between shades of purple and gold. A small crown of crystal sat on her head, marking her as royalty. She wore robes of deep blue that sparkled with what looked like captured stars. Princess Zilara. Daniel had studied her file before the mission. She was the youngest daughter of King Vorath, known throughout Valorian society as spoiled, arrogant, and cruel. She had never left her homeworld. She had never met a species she considered her equal. She was staring at Daniel with open curiosity. For a moment, their eyes met across the crowded hall. Then she began walking toward him. "Incoming," Lisa whispered. "Be careful." Daniel set down his drink and waited. Princess Zilara stopped in front of him. Up close, she was even more beautiful. Her beauty was cold, like a sculpture made of ice. Her eyes had settled on a shade of deep purple that Daniel's training told him meant contempt. "So," she said, loud enough for nearby nobles to hear, "you are a human." "I am," Daniel replied calmly. "My name is Daniel Carter. It is an honor to meet you, Princess Zilara." She laughed. It was not a kind sound. "An honor," she repeated. "How sweet. Tell me, human, is it true that your species only lives for 80 years? "Some of us live longer," Daniel said. "But yes, Our natural lifespan is shorter than many species. How sad. She circled him slowly, examining him like he was an animal at a zoo. And is it true that you only discovered space travel 200 years ago? That is correct. Amazing. Her voice dripped with false wonder. My ancestors were building cities when your ancestors were still living in caves. We were traveling between stars when your kind was learning to make fire. Daniel said nothing. He kept his expression neutral and his hands clasped behind his back. The princess seemed annoyed by his lack of reaction. Other nobles had gathered around them, watching with interest. Some were smiling, enjoying the show. I have heard stories about Earth, Zilara continued. A dirty little planet full of war and disease. Your species spent most of its history killing each other. And now you come here to our sacred halls and expect us to treat you as equals. Still, Daniel remained silent. Zylar's eyes flashed bright red for a moment. She was angry now. She wanted a reaction. She wanted him to fight back or bow down or show some emotion that she could mock. You know what I think? She said, stepping closer to him. I think your species is an evolutionary mistake. I think you should have stayed on your dirty little rock and never bothered the rest of the galaxy with your presence. The hall went completely silent. Every noble, every servant, every member of Daniel's team was watching. Lisa's face had gone pale. Torvik looked like he wanted to disappear. Daniel looked at the princess for a long moment. He studied her young face, her cruel smile, her eyes that had turned the color of blood. Then, without a single word, he turned and walked away. He did not run. He did not hurry. He simply turned his back on her and walked toward the exit with calm, measured steps. The silence in the hall was deafening. Princess Zilara stood frozen in place. Her mouth hung open slightly. In her entire life, no one had ever walked away from her. No one had ever turned their back on a princess of Valoria. Wait, she called out. I did not dismiss you. Come back here. Daniel did not stop. He did not turn. He did not acknowledge that she had spoken at all. The doors closed behind him, and he was gone. Zilara looked around at the shocked faces of the nobles. For some reason she did not understand, their eyes were not on her. They were all staring at the doors through which the human had disappeared. High Minister Torvik rushed to her side. His face had gone pale gray, and his hands were shaking. Princess, he whispered, do you have any idea what you have just done? Zilara tossed her head proudly. I put a human in his place. He ran away like a coward. Torvik closed his eyes and let out a long, slow breath. No, Princess, he said quietly. He did not run. That is not what happened at all. The private chambers of King Vorath were nothing like the Grand Hall where the disaster had happened. The room was simple, almost humble. Soft light came through windows made of pale crystal, and the furniture was old and worn with use. This was where the king came to think, away from the ceremonies and politics of his court. Daniel entered alone, as requested. 2 guards stood at the door, but did not follow him inside. King Vorath stood near the window, his tall figure outlined against the light of the 3 suns. He turned when Daniel approached, and the human saw something unexpected in the king's shifting eyes. Shame. Thank you for coming, the king said. His voice was quieter than Daniel had expected. Please, sit. They sat across from each other in chairs that had clearly seen many years of use. The king did not speak immediately. He seemed to be gathering his thoughts, choosing his words with care. I want to apologize, Vorath finally said, for what my daughter said to you. Her words were cruel, ignorant, and wrong. They do not represent the views of my government or my people. Daniel listened carefully. He could sense that the king meant what he was saying. This was not a political statement prepared by advisors. This was a father apologizing for his child. I accept your apology, Daniel said. "And I thank you for offering it. But—" Daniel paused. "But with respect, Your Majesty, the damage is not political. It is personal." The king leaned forward. "I do not understand. Your daughter did not insult the human delegation. She did not insult Earth or our government or our policies." Daniel spoke slowly, making sure every word was clear. "She insulted every human who ever lived. Every mother who raised a child. Every scientist who worked to cure a disease. Every dreamer who looked up at the stars and imagined what might be out there." Vorath's eyes shifted to a deep blue. Sadness. "She called our planet dirty," Daniel continued. "That dirt is where we buried our loved ones. It is where we grew our food. It is where children played and fell down and got up again. It is home. I understand," the king said softly. "She said we should have stayed on our rock and never bothered the galaxy. But do you know how many humans died trying to reach the stars? How many rockets failed? How many brave men and women gave their lives so that one day their children might stand on another world?" Daniel's voice remained calm, but there was weight behind every word. "We did not come to your world to ask for approval. We came to offer friendship. And your daughter looked at everything my species has ever achieved and called it a mistake." The room was silent for a long moment. "What can repair this?" Vorath asked. "What can I do?" Daniel shook his head. "You cannot repair it. Only your daughter can answer that question. And only if she truly understands what she did wrong." The king nodded slowly. He looked older now than when Daniel had entered. The weight of his daughter's actions was pressing down on him. "I will speak with her," Vorath said. "I will make her understand." Daniel stood to leave. "With respect, Your Majesty, understanding cannot be forced. It must be chosen." He left the king alone with his thoughts. Across the palace, Princess Zilara was starting to notice that something was wrong. Her usual circle of friends had grown quiet. When she entered her room, conversation stopped. When she tried to speak with other nobles, they found excuses to leave. Lady Serena had been her closest companion since childhood. They had grown up together, shared secrets, laughed at the same jokes. But when Zilara found her in the gardens that afternoon, Serena's eyes were cold. "What is wrong with everyone today?" Zilara demanded. "Why is everyone acting so strange?" Serena stared at her for a long moment. "You really do not know, do you?" "Know what?" "What you did yesterday. What it meant." Zilara laughed, but the sound was hollow. "I insulted a human. That is all." He walked away because he was weak. Why does everyone care so much? Because he was not weak. Serena's voice was sharp. Because walking away was the strongest thing he could have done. And because every noble house in the kingdom is now wondering if the royal family has any honor left. Zilara felt a cold knot form in her stomach. That is ridiculous. He is just a human. They are nothing compared to us. They are guests in our home. Serena stepped closer, her eyes flashing orange with anger. They traveled across the galaxy in ships they built themselves. They learned our language. They studied our customs. They came with respect and open hands. And you spat in their faces. I am a princess. I do not have to respect anyone. Then you are a fool. Serena turned and walked away. And I am ashamed that I ever called you my friend. Zilara stood alone in the garden, surrounded by flowers that seemed to mock her with their beauty. For the first time in her life, she felt truly alone. That night, she could not sleep. She kept thinking about the human's face, his calm expression, the way he had looked at her before turning away. There had been no anger in his eyes, no fear, just nothing. She had wanted to hurt him. She had wanted to see him react, to fight back, to prove that humans were the violent animals she had been told they were, but he had simply decided she was not worth fighting. Unable to rest, she went to the palace archives and found the recording of the reception. She had avoided watching it, telling herself she did not care. But now, alone in the dark, she needed to see. The recording showed everything. Her circling him like a predator, her cruel words, the laughter in her voice. And then his response. Watching from outside, Zilara saw something she had missed in the moment. She saw herself looking small and petty. She saw the human standing tall and calm. She saw him make his choice, and she saw her own face when he walked away. The shock, the confusion, the way her hand reached out toward him for just a second. Before dropping back to her side, she had looked like a child who had just been told she was not important, because that was exactly what had happened. The recording ended, and Zilara sat in darkness. Something was breaking inside her. Something she had built her whole life around. The belief that she was special, that she was better, that she deserved to be treated like a goddess simply because of who her father was. The human had shown her the truth with a single action. He had shown her that respect could not be demanded. It had to be earned, and she had earned nothing. Tears fell down her silver cheeks. She could not remember the last time she had cried. Maybe she never had. Princesses did not cry. Princesses did not feel shame or regret or the desperate need to apologize. But Zilara was not feeling like a princess anymore. She was feeling like a person who had done something terrible and did not know how to make it right. As the suns began to rise over the crystal towers of the palace, Zilara made a decision. She would go to the human embassy. She would find Daniel Carter. And she would do something she had never done in her 19 years of life. She would apologize, not because her father ordered her to, not because the noble houses were angry, not because she wanted to save her reputation. She would apologize because it was right, and because, for reasons she did not fully understand, she could not bear the thought of not existing in his eyes. Claire's body hurt. The cut on her arm from the earlier fight had stopped bleeding, but it burned every time she moved. Her legs were tired from carrying Yenna through the tunnels. Her eyes wanted to close, but she would not let them. She had to stay awake. The children were counting on her. It had been hours since she killed the scout. The Vorn were still out there, still searching. She could hear them sometimes, their voices echoing through the caves. They were getting closer. The children were asleep now, piled together like puppies for warmth. Only Rena stayed awake, sitting across from Claire. The young Cathari watched her with those strange yellow eyes. Claire wondered what Rena was thinking. Cathari children were probably taught things about humans. That they were weak. That they were soft. That they could not be trusted. But here Claire was, bleeding and tired, still standing guard in the dark. Rena tilted her head. She pointed at Claire, then made a gesture that looked like a question. Why? Claire guessed. Why am I doing this? She thought about it for a long moment. Because someone has to, she said quietly. Because if I walk away, I have to live with that. And I couldn't. Rena did not understand the words, but something in Claire's voice made her nod slowly. A sound came from the tunnel. Footsteps. More than one person. Claire stood up fast, ignoring the pain. She put her finger to her lips, telling Rena to keep the others quiet. Then she moved toward the tunnel entrance. Shadows moved in the darkness. Lights appeared, coming closer. The Vorn had found them. Claire counted. 4 of them. They moved carefully, weapons ready. They knew she had killed one of their own. They would not be careless, but they did not know these caves like she did. She had spent hours learning every turn, every stone, every shadow. They were walking into her territory now. She waited until they passed a narrow point in the tunnel. Then she fired. The first shot hit the one in front. He fell. The others shouted and raised their weapons, but they could not see her in the dark. She fired again, twice more. Another one went down. The remaining two returned fire. Energy bolts hit the stone near her head. Chips of rock cut her face. She ducked behind a boulder and waited. One of them tried to rush her position. She shot him when he came around the corner. 3 down, 1 left. The last one was smart. He stayed back, hiding behind his fallen friends. He shouted something at her in his language. A threat, probably. Or a demand. Claire did not answer. She waited. Minutes passed. Then she heard him moving. He was retreating, going back the way he came. She let him go. She knew what he would do. He would call for more soldiers, more weapons, more trouble. But she had bought them time. She checked her pistol. 4 shots left. When she got back to the chamber, the children were awake. They had heard the gunfire. Some of them were crying. Little Pick was wailing, his small voice echoing off the stone walls. Claire went to them. She gathered them close, pulling them against her body. They were shaking, all of them. Even Rena looked scared. "It's okay," Claire said softly. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." She held them for a long time. Her arm hurt. Her face was bleeding from the rock chips. But she did not let go. Slowly, the children calmed down. Pick stopped crying. He grabbed her jacket again and held on tight. Claire leaned back against the wall. The children pressed close to her, seeking warmth and safety. Outside, the caves were quiet for now. The Vorn were regrouping. They would come again soon. She started to hum. It was a song her grandmother used to sing, an old song from Earth. She could not remember all the words, but the tune was simple and soft. A lullaby. The children listened. They did not know the song. They did not know what it meant. But music is something every species understands. It means comfort. It means safety. It means someone cares. One by one, the children fell asleep again. Even Rena closed her eyes, her head resting against Claire's shoulder. Claire kept humming. She watched the tunnel entrance and kept humming until her throat was dry. Rena dreamed. In her dream, she was back on her homeworld. Her teachers were telling her about other species. Humans, they said, were weak. They were small and soft. They had no claws, no fur, no fangs. They broke easily. But in her dream, she saw Claire. She saw the human woman standing in the darkness with a weapon in her hand. She saw her kill to protect children who were not her own. She saw her bleeding and tired but never stopping. Weak, her teachers said. But Rena was beginning to think her teachers were wrong. She woke up to the sound of voices in the tunnel. The Vorn were coming back. And this time, there were more of them. Claire was already standing. She checked her pistol, her face calm and hard. 4 shots. More enemies than that coming. But she stood between the children and the tunnel entrance. She did not move. "Stay behind me," she said quietly. Rena gathered the others. She pushed them to the back of the chamber. Then she turned and stood beside Claire. The human looked at her and shook her head. "No, stay with them." Rena did not move. She showed her teeth and made a small growling sound. She was not going to hide while this strange human fought alone. Claire looked at her for a long moment. Then she nodded once. The lights appeared in the tunnel. The Vorn were coming. Dawn was still hours away. Claire woke up slowly. Everything was soft and warm. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Then the pain came back, and she knew she was alive. She opened her eyes. She was in a bed, a real bed with clean sheets. The room around her was strange. The walls curved in a way human architecture never was. Medical machines beeped quietly nearby. The air smelled different, not like Earth or any station she knew. She tried to sit up, but her body refused. The wound in her side screamed at her. She fell back against the pillow with a groan. A face appeared above her. A Cathari face, old and gray, with kind eyes. "Still human?" the Cathari said. Her voice was gentle. "You nearly died. Your body needs time to heal." Claire blinked. "Where am I? The children, are they safe?" the Cathari said. "All 7 of them. You are on a medical ship, heading to our homeworld. You have been asleep for 3 days. 3 days." Claire let that sink in. "The one who would not leave your side is sleeping now," the Cathari continued. She pointed to the corner of the room. Claire turned her head. Rena was curled up on a small bed near the wall. Even in sleep, the young Cathari's face was pointed toward Claire. She had been watching over her dot. Something warm filled Claire's chest. Not pain this time. Something better. Over the next few weeks, Claire healed. The Cathari physicians were good at their work. The wound in her side closed. The burns on her shoulder faded. The cuts on her face became small scars that would stay with her forever. The children visited her every day. Torek brought her drawings he made with colored sticks. Sana and Yena sat with her and tried to teach her Cathari words. Mevan and Kos played games on her bed until a physician chased them away. Little Pick climbed into her lap whenever he could, holding onto her jacket like he had that first night in the caves. And Rena was always there. The young Cathari had started to learn Galactic Common. She practiced by talking to Claire for hours. Her words were clumsy at first, but they got better every day. "My teacher said humans were weak," Rena told her one afternoon. "They said you had no claws, no strength. They said you were not warriors." Claire smiled. "Your teachers never met me." Rena shook her head. "They were wrong. I have seen what humans are. You protected us when you did not have to. You fought when you could have run. You almost died for children who were not your own." She leaned forward, her young face serious. "That is not weakness," Rena said. "That is the greatest strength I have ever seen." Claire did not know what to say to that, so she just reached out and put her hand on Rena's head, between her ears. Rena closed her eyes and made a soft sound, almost like a purr. When they reached the Cathari homeworld, Claire was nervous. She did not know what to expect. Would they thank her and send her away? Would they be angry that a human had been involved in their business? She was not prepared for what happened. The Cathari High Council called a special meeting. Leaders from every major clan attended. They wanted to hear the story of what happened on Vareth 4, told by the witnesses themselves. One by one, the children spoke. They told the council about the crash, about the slavers, about the human woman who found them. They told about the night in the caves, about Claire fighting in the darkness, about her protecting them until rescue came. The council listened in silence. When the children finished, the room was very quiet. Then the eldest council member stood up. He was old and scarred, a warrior who had fought in many battles. He looked at Claire with eyes that had seen much. "In our culture," he said, "there is a title reserved for those who protect our young with their own lives. It has never been given to an outsider. But today, the council agrees that this human has earned it." He spoke a word in the Cathari language. It sounded like music. "Clan friend," he translated. "From this day forward, you are family to us. Our homes are your homes. Our children are your children. This is forever." Claire stood there, surrounded by aliens who had once thought of humans as weak and unimportant. Now, they were offering her something no human had ever received. She thought about saying something noble, something worthy of the moment. Instead, she looked at the 7 children sitting in the front row. At Rena, who was smiling with all her teeth showing. At Little Pick, who waved at her with his small clawed hand. "Thank you," she said simply, "for letting me be part of your family." The story spread across the galaxy. Other species heard about the human woman who had fought alone against slavers to protect alien children. They heard about her standing in the darkness, wounded and outnumbered. Refusing to give up. At the Galactic Council, representatives discussed what this meant. Some said it was just one human, one story, nothing special. But others remembered similar tales. Humans who ran into danger to save strangers. Humans who gave their lives for people they did not know. Maybe. Some began to think they had been wrong about humanity. Years passed. Claire returned to her cargo hauling, but her life was different now. She had a family on a distant world. She had 7 children who sent her messages and drawings and invitations to visit Dot. And one day, when Rena was grown and had cubs of her own, Claire received a special invitation. She traveled to the Keth-Ari homeworld one more time. Rena met her at the landing pad, tall and proud, a warrior in her own right now. 2 small cubs hid behind her legs, peeking out at the strange human. "Cubs," Rena said, kneeling down to their level. "This is Aunt Claire. She is clan friend. She is family. And she once taught me the most important lesson I have ever learned." "What lesson?" one of the cubs asked. Rena looked up at Claire and smiled. "That true strength is not about what you can destroy," she said. "It is about what you will protect." Claire knelt down and opened her arms. The cubs came to her, curious and unafraid. They had heard stories about her all their lives. The human woman who protected the beast. Children all night. The galaxy would never forget, and neither would they. They came with lights and weapons and angry voices. Claire counted 8 of them this time. 8 soldiers against one tired woman with 4 bullets. She stood at the tunnel entrance. It was narrow here, just wide enough for one person. They could not come at her all at once. That was good. That was the only reason she had a chance. Behind her, the children huddled in the back of the chamber. Rena stood in front of them, her small claws ready. She was just a child, but she would fight. Claire could see it in her eyes. The firstborn came around the corner. Claire shot him. 3 bullets left. The second one tried a different angle. She shot him too. 2 bullets left. They pulled back. She could hear them talking to each other, making a plan. They knew now that she would not run. They knew they would have to go through her. A voice called out. It spoke in Galactic Common so she could understand. "Human, give us the beasts and we let you live. You are alone. You cannot win. Be smart." Claire did not answer right away. She looked back at the children. At Little Pick, crying silently. At Yenna with her hurt leg. At Rena, standing guard with her young face trying to look brave. She turned back to the tunnel. "They're children," she said. Her voice was steady. "And you're not taking them." The voice laughed. "Stupid human. You will die for animals?" "I'll die for children," Claire said. "Now come and try to take them." They came. The next one rushed in fast. Claire fired and hit him in the shoulder. He fell but was not dead. She fired her last bullet into his chest. Now her pistol was empty. She threw it at the next one and pulled out her knife. The tunnel became a place of shadows and violence. Claire fought with everything she had. She was not trained for this. She was just a cargo hauler, a woman who moved boxes from one place to another. But she was fighting for children, and that made her stronger than she had any right to be. A blade cut her side. The pain was sharp and hot. She gasped but did not fall. She killed the one who cut her and stepped back. An energy bolt grazed her shoulder. Her jacket caught fire. She slapped it out and kept fighting. 2 more came at her together. She ducked one swing and stabbed upward. The other one hit her in the face. She fell against the wall, tasting blood. But she got up. She always got up. The Vorn could not understand it. She was just one human. She was wounded and bleeding and out of ammunition. Why would she not stop? Why would she not give up? But Claire knew something they did not. Humans are not strong because of their bodies. Humans are strong because of what they will fight for. And Claire was fighting for 7 children who had no one else. She killed another one. Now only 3 were left. One of them grabbed her arm. She headbutted him and heard something crack. He let go. She stabbed him in the neck. 2 left. But Claire could barely stand. The wound in her side was bleeding badly. Her vision was getting blurry. She held her knife in front of her, waiting. The Vorn commander stepped forward. He was big and mean-looking, with scars on his face. He looked at Claire like she was an insect. "Enough," he said. "You cannot fight anymore. Put down the knife. Tell me why I should not kill you slowly for what you have done." Claire smiled. Blood stained her teeth. "Because you can't," she said. "You had 12 soldiers. Now you have 1. I'm still standing." The commander's eyes narrowed. He raised his weapon. A sound came from outside. A loud sound like thunder. The cave shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The commander turned toward the tunnel entrance, confused. More sounds. Engines. Big ones. Ships coming down from the sky. Claire laughed. It hurt, but she laughed anyway. Before she left her own ship, before she took the children and ran, she had done one thing. She had found the crashed Kethari vessel's emergency beacon. She had boosted its signal with her own ship's power. She had sent out a call for help that would reach across the stars. She did not know if anyone would come. But she had tried that, and now they were here. The commander tried to run. He made it 3 steps before the cave was filled with new lights. Kethari warriors poured in, big and fierce, their weapons gleaming. They were shouting battle cries in their own language. The last 2 Vorn died quickly. And then it was over. Claire stood there, barely able to stay on her feet. Her knife slipped from her fingers and clattered on the stone floor. The tunnel was full of Kethari warriors, and they were all staring at her. She turned around. The children were safe. Rena was holding little Pick, and they were all alive. Claire smiled. Then her legs gave out. She heard voices shouting. She felt arms catching her before she hit the ground. Someone was calling for a healer. Someone else was crying. A small voice, a child's voice. Rena pushed through the warriors and grabbed Claire's hand. She would not let go. "Claire," she said. "Claire." Claire tried to speak, but her words were weak. "They're okay? The children?" A Kethari warrior looked down at her. His eyes were wide with something she could not read. Shocked, maybe. Or wonder. "The cubs are safe," he said in careful galactic common. "All of them. Because of you." Claire closed her eyes. She was so tired. The pain was fading now, replaced by a strange warmth. "Good," she whispered. "That's good." Then the darkness took her, and she knew nothing more.